It is said that a traveler who was on his way to Seville due to some lawsuit with his neighbor on account of the boundaries of his vineyard spent the night at the inn of La Fragua in the vicinity of Alcalá de Guadaira. This good gentleman did not want to continue this way despite the proximity to the city of Seville, because night was beginning to fall, and in those days the roads had long since ceased to be safe. He thought it better to spend the night on the road and at town, and with a fresh horse to enter Seville, where he would seek lodging. Then he would go to the house of the lawyer who for years had handled his family's affair. Crestfallen, sitting by the fire, washing the jug of wine that he surrounded with his hands, he wondered if it would not better to take the law into his own hands instead of wasting time and money in a lawsuit that would last for years and that no one could guarantee would end well. For years, he had been in dispute that lazy man who had his lands covered with weeds, who only set foot on from time to time when fortune was burst to him and he appeared in the family house. Who knows why? He was already having the second jar of wine when, staring at the fire, he heard a murmur that said, "Diego, listen to the story I'm going to tell you." It was Pampani's voice, who took advantage of the crackling of the flames to jump from the fire onto the wine grower's shoulder. It happened a long time ago in a place far from here, where a cold wind blows, which is called cierzo, which they say sharpens the edge of the rocks instead of turning them blunt. There lived a young nobleman, poet and warrior, who, being the second of his house, inherited nothing but the lordship of Trasmoz at the foot of the Moncayo. Life was peaceful despite the rudeness of the mountain, and the end of the war against the Moors had brought peace and prosperity to those lands. Don Pedro Jimenez, as the lord of those lands was called, sometimes hunted, sometimes read novels of chivalry, or wrote poems to his beloved Doña Maria. But the stillness of the days turned into agitation when the inhabitants of Litiago changed the course of the waters to irrigate their lands, as if the water of Alara were their property. Don Pedro then decided to teach a lesson and sent armed people to Litiago, who applied a serious corrective to the people of the place. The residents of Litiago and Añón, being vassals of the monastery of Veruela, they went to the abbot in search of protection. He therefore made the monastery among the inhabitants, who numbered 500 at the summers of the abbot. When those of Veruela and those of Trasmoz rose up in arms, the Viscount of Villota, deputy of nobles, decided to intervene and claimed the spirits for 6 months, but the disputes continued. Trasmoz people made an incursion one night, causing to death on the rival side. The abbot, seeing that the quarrels had not been enough to keep Don Pedro's troop away, decided to entrust himself to God and ask for his help to curse the neighboring lordship. Thus, one day after High Mass, he ordered the diacon to take out the Holy Cross and place it on the altar covered with a black veil. The convent began to sing Psalm 108 of the Book of Psalms, the end of the Curse. Deus laudem mea net aqueris, viaus peccatoris et ostolosis super me apertum est. After each verse, they rang the bell, and at last they said 3 collets of a 10. Parallel to the curse, the abbot decided to go to the patronage of Don Alonso de Aragon, Count of Ribagorza and Lord of Pedrola, who sent letters to Trasmoz that the monastery and all its vassal places were under his protection. Don Pedro Jimenez, in response to the letter, sent 500 men to Añón, who cut down all the vineyards. Anger took hold of those of Añón, who, together with those of Torrelas, Los Fallos, and Santa Cruz, cut down as many trees as they found in Trasmoz. The water of Alara was never so expensive, and as a last attempt to avoid war, the adversaries restored to arbitration, establishing in Zaragoza on November 11, 1515, that Litiago could irrigate twice a year. But no sooner had a month passed when Don Alonso de Aragon went to the monastery to meet with the abbot and offered to defend the monastery and take as his own the wrongs that the Lord of Trasmoz had caused. It did not take long for this news of this disturbing put to reach the neighboring lordship. Don Pedro therefore went to ask for the help of his brother, the Count of Aranda, who had 2,000 infantry and 250 horsemen ready to support Zaragoza in a lawsuit he had against Don Francisco de Luna for the use of the Dam of Moal. With this army, Don Pedro Jimenez appeared in Pedrola, arriving at a summer house that the lords of that town had. Halting the horse, they cut down 2 pine trees and made fire for cooking. Don Alonso sent a servant to find out who they were and what these people were looking for. The servant asked who the captain was, to which the Lord of Trasmoz himself replied, "Say that I am Don Pedro Durrea, that I am satisfied with the feeling that the people of Añón, Torrella, and the Abbey of Veruela did in my place." After that, they left. Offended Count Alonso and his people were favored by Francisco de Luna, Count of Riclet and Lord of Moal, with which they gathered more than 3,000 infantry and 450 horsemen. Who unreasonable had the water dispute become, and so dangerous for the kingdom, that Ferdinand the Catholic himself decided to intervene. Informed of all that had happened, the king decided to declare that it was the Count of Ribagorza, Don Alonso de Aragon, who broke the truce, condemning him for it to penalties imposed on the violators, banishing him from the entire kingdom of Aragon, and to pay the damage that had been declared. But the king's decision cannot be considered a victory for Don Pedro, since his lands were razed, the vines uprooted or cut down, and the lordship cursed forever. Spain, the only town in Spain separate from God, excommunicated to this day, where witches and sorcerers have sought shelter to conjure up the evil one. Let's take in account what has been narrated before taking justice in our own hands.